We met when I was in primary school. Alexei was a friend of my brother. He was 8 years older than me. Then it was interesting for me to sit with them and listen to what they were talking about. I laughed with everyone, and I know that he did not think about me then, but I was head over heels in love with Lyosha. By the time I finished school, Lyosha had already served in the army and was studying at the institute. One day he came to our house, saw me, and seemed shocked. I was embarrassed too. No one had ever looked at me like that before. In the evening, Lyosha called me and asked me out. To be honest, Eve had been waiting for this offer for many years. I couldn't refuse, but I was afraid to go. Before it was just a children's party, but now it was serious. I put on the dress my mother had bought me for my graduation, shoes, and no makeup so that everything would look natural. We met in the park for a walk, then Alexei bought ice cream. We sat on a bench all evening. We didn't talk much. I didn't know what to ask him, and he just kept silent, asking how I had lived all these years, where I was going after school. I started to answer. He looked at me all the time. It confused me very much. I asked directly. Then the guy replied that he could not believe that such a beauty could grow out of an ugly duckling that he remembered from childhood. We began to date. I entered the institute of our city, so we did not have to separate. My mother allowed me to communicate with Alexei. She knew that my brother's friend would not insult me, and I was in love with Alex. Looked at him with childish eyes. It seemed to me that he was smart, knew everything, and could do anything. We met for exactly 1 year. When I finished the first year, my beloved asked me to marry him. I did not want to rush into it because I was so young, but Alexei insisted, saying that it was necessary to start a family. Mom and Dad also said it was time, so I gave in. The wedding was wonderful. Everything is as I dreamed it would be, and most importantly, Lyosha is close by. All my childhood I imagined that we were standing with him. Everyone was looking at us, and we were happy. Only in my childhood dreams I was always ashamed when I had to think about a kiss, because everyone would be watching. But now everything was not a dream, but reality. There were lots of presents. All her friends and acquaintances were around. Everything was fine. What more could you dream of? A few months after our wedding, I dreamed of having a child. And a few months later, my wish was fulfilled, and I saw a few stripes on the test. When I told Lyosha about it, he looked at me and asked, "Is this really my child?" I was surprised. Did he doubt me? He shrugged and said that everything happens in life. After that moment, a nightmare began in my life. I spent most of my pregnancy at my mother's house. Lyosha drank, skipped school, and then dropped out of college. Neither I nor my relatives understood what was happening. When I called to ask or say something, I heard only curses. It's time to give birth. But even now her husband was not there. My parents helped me all the time, and after I was released I went to them, but Lyosha never came. I called, he didn't answer, then I found out that he went to work. He won't be back for 6 months. She moved into our apartment with her son, cleaned everything up, repaired it a little. Of course, Dad helped. At that time, I started to wait for my husband's return. My son was growing up. He could sit by himself, hold a spoon, and began to introduce complimentary foods. The husband returned when the child was walking in a walker. I didn't see any joy on his face, but there was no anger either. They began to live together. At first, everything went well, but after a few months, something came over Alexei again. He started insulting me, saying that I was walking somewhere, texting with someone, because he did not understand that I had a small child and spent all the time with him. Friends, relatives, and I talked to Lisha, but it didn't help. The drinking started again. That was the worst part. When he drank, he turned into a beast. He could call me all kinds of names, push me, I put up with it all because I loved him, or at least I thought I did. He kept saying that he had picked me up, that no one needed me like that. It was so insulting to look at the man I loved so much for so many years, and now in my eyes, he was not a hero at all. Mom advised me not to cut from the shoulder, to wait. Maybe he'll come to his senses. He'll understand everything. It was so painful and hard for me that I couldn't wait any longer. I wanted to file for divorce several times, but only Alexei found out about it, immediately apologized, and for a few weeks everything was fine, as before. I really wanted a second child, preferably a daughter, but my husband was categorically against it. I decided to cheat and did everything I could to get pregnant, and I did. I found out during a medical examination. At home, I told my husband. This time, he took the news more calmly, just saying that he was going on another long business trip to earn money for the family. I didn't argue with my husband. I let him do what he wanted. I moved in with my mother during my maternity leave. It was easier for me, and the older one is taken care of, and am not alone. I gave birth as usual with the support of mom and dad. My daughter was born, whom I adored even before she was born. Alexei still did not show up, although his watch was long gone. We talked to him on the phone, said kind words, but he did not want to come, decided to stay for another term. I needed money. I couldn't live at my parents' expense all the time, so I called Alexei and told him to send money, and I got a positive response. My mother even praised him, saying that a responsible father helps his children. During the day the money came, but it was pennies, not enough for anything. I decided to call back when my husband started yelling that I live with my parents, that they can help, but he's there alone and he has no place to wait for help. I was crying. I didn't know what to do. The older one had to be picked up for school. The younger one was changing to a mixture, and diapers are not cheap. I decided that I had to get a part-time job somewhere, but they wouldn't take me anywhere under the contract. I needed official employment. And I was working. I couldn't go to my home either. They wouldn't take me for half a day, but I couldn't do the whole thing. My mother and I decided to rent out our apartment with Alexei. We put an ad, and the next day a man called. I didn't want to give an apartment to a lonely young man, but there was no choice. In the evening, I went to meet him at the door. Dmitri was dressed in youth style and said that he would pay for 6 months in advance. I warned that the apartment was not very good, that it needed repairs and all that, to which the guy said not to worry. One day the tenant called and said he needed to consult. In the evening I arrived at his apartment and saw it and did not recognize him. It turned out that Dmitri works as an interior designer. He had done a little bit of redecorating, so far only with furniture. He asked if he could make a wall of drywall to make it more comfortable. I advised him not to change anything because it was my husband's apartment. He called again. Now he just wanted to see me, and I agreed. Mom said she would babysit the grandchildren. We met Dmitri. He was so polite. eBay missed it so much in the last few years. And it turned out that we had a lot in common. We talked incessantly, as if we had known each other for 100 years. Dima said goodbye to me and offered to meet again. I nodded, and so our meetings began. My mother said that she had never seen such burning eyes in my life. I don't remember myself like that. I immediately confessed everything to Dima, that I was married, had 2 children, that if I had been happy with my husband, I would never have started seeing someone else. And as soon as everything was all right with us, Alexei came back. He came to my mother. At that time Dmitri was visiting. He looked at us in disbelief when he understood everything, turned around and left. Later he began to call, asking to come back, saying that he would get better. He never thought that a gray mouse like me could leave him, but I decided to do it.